Newsom there? Representative Newsom?
I don't see it yet.
We are live.
Thank you, Nick.
I'm not seeing you live on YouTube.
Good afternoon, everyone.
At this time, I hope everybody's here and we will call the meeting to order at 1 o'clock. Charlie, could you proceed
Yes.
with your information piece?
Yes. Everyone, I'd just like to make note for everyone that's on the call. We do have a draft set of rules that were posted mid-morning. It's on our website, draft number 5. You can go to the website and pull those up. We'll sure give you a minute if you haven't had an opportunity to look at those. And then we can proceed. And again, if you're having problems getting that draft pulled up, sure to let us know. And we'll start. Welcome to the, what date is it?
June 8th.
July or June
June
8th special meeting of the Wyoming Gaming Commission. The mission, our primary mission of the Wyoming Gaming Commission is the protection of the wagering public and the health, safety, and welfare of the participants in all lawful gaming and pari-mutuel activity. Individuals who wish to address the commission will be recognized and called on by the president to speak. After the president has recognized you, please clearly state your name and the name of the organization you represent prior to addressing the commission. All comments, questions, and responses must flow through the president by addressing the president each time you wish to speak. This procedure ensures an orderly flow of discussion during the commission meeting. Again, thank you everyone for being on the call. My name is Charlie Moore, Director of the Wyoming Gaming Commission. With me today, I have President Davis. I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
Well, at this time, Charlie, item 1 is roll call.
Thank you. President Davis.
Here.
Vice President Broussard. Vice President Broussard, are you here? Commissioner Cavallo.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Daigle.
Sherry's here. Where are you?
Commissioner Daigle. I wonder if we lost her. Commissioner Daigle, are you here? I don't see her on the call. She was on there earlier. I'm sure she'll be back on. Commissioner Barry.
Here.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Leinen.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Kura.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Pacheco.
Here.
Thank you, sir. And Commissioner Wildcat.
Here.
Thank you. Senator Driscoll, are you on the call this morning or this afternoon? Legislative Liaison Driscoll does not appear to be on the call. Is Legislative Liaison Representative Newsom on the call? Does not appear to be on the call. We have Governor's Liaison, Dan Schiffer. Are you on the call? There he
Yes,
is.
good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Commissioner Daigle, are you on the call? Did you join us?
Yes, sir. I did get reconnected.
Okay, thank you.
Well, at this time, Charlie, it appears we have a quorum.
Yes, we have a quorum.
We
Thank you.
can proceed then with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
and to the republic for
which is stands one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Okay. With that, Charlie, we go to item number 2, discussion and consideration and possible action on the adoption of the agenda. I would be entertaining the motion at this time, commissioners.
President Davis, this is Commissioner Leinen. I would move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Dick. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. That's 1, that's 2. Let's go to item number 3. At this time, we would be needing a motion to enter into discussion to consider the 5th draft of the rules for sports wagering. Is there a motion out there?
I so move.
Okay. Is there
I
a
second.
Second.
Okay, been moved by Commissioner Berry and seconded by Commissioner Leinen. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried, Charlie. With that, I will turn it over to you and we can go through the 5th draft.
Thank you again. Has everybody had an opportunity to pull up the draft that was posted today? 06/08/21, draft number 5, set of rules.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you. Also joining us today, that I didn't say originally, we do have Mr. Kaler from the Attorney General's office. We have Mike Robbins also here on the call from GLI.
Good afternoon.
Of course, we've got stakeholders from across the country on here as well, and I'm scrolling through if there's anybody else I'm missing. Thank you. Well, today, let's just set a little bit of a kind of a frame around this. We're going to walk through each one of the sections today on our draft set of rules. I think we want to try to keep this as free-flowing as possible. If there's comments, concerns, anything, let's get them talked about, gone through today. And I'd like to welcome Representative Newsom. I see you on the call now. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
And if at any time you guys have questions or concerns, please bring them forth, because with any luck, we will be sending these to the governor on this Friday for his review.
Excellent.
And that is our goal today, is to get through these and have a completed set. One thing, bear in mind, we do have quite a bit of formatting alterations that we're going to have to make, and I'll make note of those as we go through them. But when we're completed here, it would be strictly formatting and just layout of the rules that would then move forward. And then, of course, once they get into the public comment, you would have the opportunity to comment on the rules once again in the 45-day public comment. At the end of the 45-day public comment, then they would come back to the commission. If we have comments, we would respond to those. If we don't have any comments, then we will go ahead and do a formal adoption of those, and then continue the process. So we appreciate everybody that has been involved in this, from the stakeholders to our tribal neighbors to Gaming Laboratories Inc. working with us on these rules, to the Attorney General's office. Again, you know, we really appreciate the hard work that everybody has put into this. Again, like I've stated earlier in some of our other meetings, we are still on track for a September 1 deadline that was mandated in House Enrolled Act 50. And again, thank you to the stakeholders. We are adopting a similar framework of many other states, and that has been helpful. The rules have been gleaned from Colorado, Tennessee, Michigan, Iowa, Indiana, and we look forward to getting this part of the process completed. So with nothing else, shall we jump in?
Let's start with Chapter 1, Page 2.
Chapter 1, Page 2. Section 1 is the definitions. On page 1 there, as you can see from the strike, we removed the language that was asked to be removed by the stakeholders there. We've added some other language in there. And again, I'm going to kind of breeze through some of this relatively quickly, if it's all right. On page 3, no changes from our last call.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
if I might, looking at line 86 at the bottom of 3, excluded by the director, I assume that means the gaming council director, but it's not real clear. And director is referenced on the next page in a number of different sections. So I'm wondering if you need to kind of clarify who the director is.
That'd be a question for GLI there.
Nope.
Good.
We so noted. That would be an easy non-substantive change that we can clarify that, I believe.
Who would that be then?
That would be the Gaming Commission director.
Gaming Commission Director?
Mm-hmm. Is that, they're loud in the other room there. Moving on to page, and thank you, Mr. Schiffer, I appreciate that. Moving on to page 4. Again, no changes from the last set of rules when we went through them. Page 5. From our last discussion on line 133, we removed the language any employee of or appointee to the Wyoming Gaming Commission. We struck that from our last meeting. Moving on to 6, no changes. 7, no changes. And page 8, no changes.
Are there any questions on Chapter 1? Any from the public? Hearing none, Charlie, let's continue on with Chapter 2.
Thank you. Chapter 2, permittees and permits. Section 1, permits generally. As you can see in blue, we've added some of the language here to clarify. Page 10, then moving over to page 11, section 2, permits, fees, and applications. At the bottom of the page, we removed language. Moving over to page 12. And again, everybody has the changes in front of them. Page 13. You can see on line 387, we inserted the language. We also inserted language on line 394, 95. Moving on to page 14. We made change, we again, just some clarification on lines 422. 428 was a change that was made early on in the process. Later on in that same sentence, just some formatting fixes there. And then we made the changes here and deleted a lot of the language that was unnecessary on lines 431 through 439. Moving over to page 15. That is all with chapter 2.
Are there any questions on chapter 2 at this time from the commission or the public?
I have none, Mr. President.
Thank you. Hearing none, Charlie, let's go to chapter 3, taxes and payments.
Thank you. Chapter 3, taxes and payments, section 1, taxes, payments generally. Again, just some, at the top there, just, you know, a little bit of formatting fixes to it. And then on lines 495 to 502, and then 503 to 511, again, just clarifying how the taxes and payments are made and how they're processed and when and where they need to be done. Section 2, write-offs, amounts returned, disputed credit or debit charges. No changes on page 17, nor is there any changes. There's just a minor change at the bottom of page 18 on line 529.
Are there any questions or concerns on chapter 3? Hearing no questions or concerns on chapter 3, Charlie, let's proceed with chapter 4.
Chapter 4, patron wagers, section 1, authorized prohibited events wagering types. On page 20, the first page of that, no changes. On page 21, we struck the language, the first two sentences in response to the industry. No other changes on that page. Flipping over to page 22, we added in the language there on lines 652 to 655. Again, just clarifying language and then referencing back to the statutes. Section 2, prohibited wagers for good cause. No changes in that section. Section 3, wagering rules. On page 23, no changes in that section. Moving on to 24, acceptance of wagers. On the remainder of page 24, there were no changes. And again, minor changes on page 25 for the remainder of section 4. Section 5, prohibited persons. No changes. Section 6, layoff wagers. Again, we just added some clarifying language. Section 7, adding pools. And then turning to page 26. Again, I believe this was language that we had during our last meeting and is just carried over. No changes from that meeting. Moving over to page 27. Again, these are changes that we had discussed during the last meeting. Section 8, bonus or promotional wagers. Again, these changes were reflective of our last meeting. Page 29, taxation requirements, no changes. Section 10, Bank Secrecy Act compliance. No changes. Section 11, integrity monitoring suspicious behavior. These were changes, I believe, that we discussed during our last meeting in response to the industry. Kind of clarify a little of that. Moving over to page 30. Again, minor changes, clarification, event, promptly instead of immediately. Page 31, section 12, reserve requirements. Again, these are all changes and different things that were discussed during our last meeting. And all of those same changes from the last meeting carry over through section 13, patron complaints. And that concludes chapter 4.
Are there any questions on chapter 4 at this time? Any questions? Looks good then, Charlie. Let's go to chapter 5, technical standards.
Thank you. Chapter 5, technical standards. We did make some changes in here, just again clarifying how we're referencing these and explaining it a little better. We are referencing Gaming Laboratories International Series GLI 33, Standards for Event Wagering, version 1.1, and its appendixes. We're also referencing in here GLI's Change Management Guide as well. And we have discussed this throughout this whole process. These are just a clarification and kind of hopefully making this read a little better. Section 2, approval of sports wagering system. Changed a couple notations there on line 1102, swapped out deleted testing to gaming laboratory. We added gaming. We did the same down there on 1109 instead of independent testing laboratory, independent gaming laboratory. Moving on. Excuse me. I apologize. That is ETS's, our technical people. So I apologize for that.
Page 36, Charlie.
Thank you. Page 36, again at the top, just some clarification language on what we're adopting by reference. Section 3, geolocation requirements. Again, this is language that we've had continued through for quite some time. Section 4, location of servers, security, cloud storage. We removed on line 1142 and 1143, over on the far end of the sentence, and storage. Section 5, integrity security assessments. No changes. On page 38, again from some of our recent discussions, we added in there on line 1188, critical components. Section 6, sports wagering technical security controls, no changes. Section 7, information security management systems, no substantive changes. Section 8, test accounts, same thing, no substantive changes. Section 9, incorporation by reference. We made a few minor changes in there, just how we're referencing. And that concludes chapter 6.
Chapter 5.
Or excuse me, chapter 5. Getting ahead of myself.
Any questions on chapter 5 at this time from anyone? Hearing no questions, Charlie, I think we can proceed to Chapter 6, Sports Wagering Accounts.
Thank you. Sports wagering accounts, section 1, we're on page 41. No changes. Page 42. At the bottom of the page, we just made some minor changes. These were from last week, I believe, on line 1334. On page 43, section 2, age identity verification. Again, these are changes that were made during the last or at the last meeting and prior to that. Section 3, terms, conditions, and privacy policies of sports wagering accounts. No changes on that page. Flipping over, no changes on that page as well. Section 4, patron protection information. We made, excuse me, do we have someone that,
Patrick just muted himself.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think we're good there, Charlie.
Section 4, patron protection information. Changes that are on there have been in place for a while. Section 5, patron access. No changes. Section 6, no changes. Section 7, this is on page 46, deposits to a sports wagering account. On line 1463, we added bonus or promotional credit in there. You can see the additional language. I believe that's been in place since the last meeting. And again, on page 47, the changes that are there have been in place for several renditions of the rules. Section 8, failed EFT transactions, no changes. Section 9, withdrawals of a sports wagering account. Section 10, minor change there, formatting. 11, section 11, sports wagering account information, again, just some minor changes. Section 12, responsible gambling limits, no change. Section 13, only minor changes, and that is on page 49. Sections 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, no changes. At the top of page 51, again, just some cleanup language. And that concludes Chapter 6.
Are there any questions on Chapter 6 at this time? Any questions on Chapter 6? Hearing none, Charlie, let's proceed with Chapter 7.
And again, just to remind everybody, there will be formatting changes once we conclude this, just to clean it up and make sure that they will be all, make the rules look pretty for everybody. So thank you for everybody's help. Chapter 7, Audit and Internal Control, Section 1, Internal Control Standards Purpose, no changes. Section 2, on page 53, just a minor change there in the middle of line 1687. No additional changes in that section. Section 3, amendments to internal controls. Again, minor change there on the next page, on page 55. Section 4, emergency procedures. This has been in place through the last meeting. Section 5, no changes. Section 6, compliance with internal controls. No changes until you flip over to the next page. Excuse me.
Section 7.
No changes in 6. And then Section 7, these were the changes that we brought forth at the last meeting to clarify what we'd originally had. Section 8, accounting records. No changes on page 57 or 58. Section 9, the financial audits. Minor changes on page 58. Changes were just, again, formatting and clarifying language. On
Mr.
page,
President,
Go ahead.
sorry, this is Andrew Winchell from FanDuel. I just wanted to say two things. One, on Section 7, before, I want to thank all the work done to address the concerns that FanDuel raised, and we are very happy with the language in Section 7. On Section 9, I wanted to just point out, in our comments that we shared, we thought that there were a number of situations in which vendors were held to a standard throughout the proposed rules that was probably more appropriate only for sports wagering operators. This would be one of them, and I wanted to just also raise this in relation to the commission's interest, because in here there's a term used that's not used elsewhere in the rules, and that is a management services provider. I don't know if there was while there was looking at other sets of rules as a guide, the term was inadvertently captured here, but it appears on line 1863 that it is a reference to an operator or a management services provider, but it's not defined anywhere that I can see in the statute or in the reg. I think it would be the intent of the commission to have it be a sports wagering vendor there, but then I would go to the point that I don't know that it's necessary for all sports wagering vendors to submit annual financial audits.
thank you for that comment. And I'm reading. Commissioners, we're looking at on page 58. We're looking at Section 9, financial audits. Upon application of a permit and annually thereafter, each sports wagering operator or sports wagering vendor shall submit to the commission within 90 days of the operator or management service provider's fiscal year end its most recent financial audit. I'm thinking that we could almost delete that language.
President Davis, this is Jenny.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really not standard for the commissions to get the financial audits of the vendors themselves as opposed to the operators. It's the operators that will need to report those finances so they can reconcile everything that has to do with fees, payments, taxes, whatever. But that's just when somebody offers a platform, I don't know which you would need the financial reports on for those vendors. So I would almost request to strike that from the vendors as opposed to the operators.
Mr. President, this is Mike Robbins from GLI, and I would agree with this. This was put in by mistake. These terms, the operator and management service provider. I would agree with striking that. One thing I do want to mention is although throughout the document there's mention of operator or vendor, the purpose of listing one or the other is we've often seen cases where an operator might outsource certain aspects of their operation to a vendor. And so there might be a case where for one operator, they'd handle everything and they only use vendors for minimal parts of their operation. But there might be another operator who outsources a lot of things to multiple vendors and so that's why throughout the document you'll see cases where it's an operator or a vendor. So, maybe this isn't the best section to put it, but if there is a function that might be handled in one operator vendor bucket where, in one case it might be handled directly by that operator, then it would fall under them. But if it's handled by that vendor, then, really the vendor is to provide that alongside with the, to the operator to complete the whole package, essentially.
President Davis, I agree with Mike. I think each reference should be taken on a case-by-case basis, just contingent upon where it's at in the document, that type of thing. So we don't need to remove that consistently through the document. Just look at each specific section. But in this section, I would agree with taking the vendor out.
The management service provider out of there? Is that the consensus of the commission?
President Davis, this is Commissioner Leinen.
Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
I would agree that we should take it out of there. And if we choose not to take it out of there, we should go back to the definitions and add it as a definition and define what it is.
I think it'd be much simpler to take it out.
It seems that it'd be a lot simpler just to remove it, as Commissioner Walcott pointed out.
I'm fine with that.
Everybody good? Thumbs up?
Thumbs up.
Yes.
And this is Mike, Mr. President.
Oh.
Hello. And just to clarify that, so we'll be taking out the term management service provider on 1863, and then also the line above removing or sports wagering vendor as well. Is that my understanding? I mean, Mr. Robbins is shaking his head yes.
Is that your take on that, Commissioner Walcott?
I need a minute just to take a peek at it.
So you're saying, Mike, could you repeat that again, please?
Yes, Mr. President. So it's my understanding that if we, for the purposes of financial audits, if we are only going to be requesting those from sports wagering operators and not sports wagering vendors, is that my understanding, Commissioner Wildcat? Okay, a thumbs up on that one. And so if that's the case, then we would on line 1862 strike or sports wagering vendor, and then 1863 strike the language or management service provider.
Does that sound correct? Alex, is that good with you?
Alex, who's Alex?
Andrew.
Andrew, that was Andrew.
Andrew.
Yes, that is good with us. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. I thought there was an X right there, but your mute was on.
He's over here.
Now he's over there. Oh my God, quit moving, would you?
President Davis, also in that same notion, on line 1873 into 1874, I would also recommend removal of and sports wagering vendor as well, considering this section is really applicable to the operator.
So you would have that on line 1873 and 1874 there?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay.
That's just, Mr. President, that's just the vendor taken out, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Is that good with the commission? Thumbs
Yes.
up? All right. With that, Charlie? section 10, I believe.
Yes, thank you. Section 10, Commission Access to System Data. As you can see there at the bottom, we added the language and then deleted language in there. Moving on, section 11, records retention. Again, I believe most all of these changes have been prior to the last meeting. Flipping over on section 12, no changes. That concludes Chapter 7.
Are there any more questions or concerns on chapter 7?
President Davis, I do have a question. On section 7 of chapter 7, where it's talking about the independent audits, it does say that the commission has the ability to conduct the audit or an approved third-party auditor. That third-party auditor, do they, and I'd almost prefer for then, I don't know if it's in this because I'm taking a quick read of everything. I don't see where they're required to submit the internal control audit to the commission.
That's in 1767 and 1786. Is that right?
Well, it starts the whole section. It does say that they've got to have the results documented in a written report on line 1764, but it doesn't say that it needs to submit them to the commission. 1767 talks about they can have the approved third-party auditor, operate company sports independent, serve as a third-party auditor, responsible for auditing the sports wage operators compliance. Doesn't have anything where they submit the approved third-party auditor submit it to the commission. But if the commission conducts it, then we'll already have that documentation.
That is.
Mr. President, this is Andrew from FanDuel.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I believe on lines 1782 to 84, independent audit report shall include, and it continues, report shall be maintained and available to the commission.
Thank you, Andrew. I just read right over it.
So that covers everything that you were concerned with there, Commissioner Wildcat?
Yeah, it's just kind of buried down there in D. My preference would be to move that line, section 1783, starting report shall be maintained and available to the commission, to above, following in the middle of line 1764. Just kind of move it up there where your general information would be, as opposed to just being buried down there in D.
So you'd want to put D above A or between A and B?
Specifically, the report shall be maintained and available to the commission, moved up to the first paragraph.
Okay. That would be a simple fix.
Yeah, it's just a formatting fix.
Yep. Yep.
Does that sound good with the commission?
Yes, sounds great.
Okay, thumbs up. We're all up. Okay. Any other concerns at this time? Thank you, Jenny. That was good. If there's no other concerns or questions at this time, Charlie, chapter 8.
Chapter 8, responsible gaming and advertising. Section 1, we added the language commencing operations in Wyoming. That change has been in place for a little while. Section 2, no changes. Section 3, most of the changes in there are all just lowercase director. Sections 4, on page 64, no changes. On page 65, We spelled out 72 hours, parentheses 72. And then in the middle of the page, we added the language while on the self-exclusion list or involuntary exclusion list. Clarified that in a better way. Section 5, advertising, on page 65, no changes, and that includes Chapter 8.
Are there any questions or concerns on Chapter 8?
This is Patrick with the National Council on Problem Gambling. And I was just wondering, under the advertising section, if you want to include a reference to a helpline, a national network helpline, along those lines. And I know Wyoming currently uses the National Council's network, which provides assistance in all 50 states. So I was just wondering if we need, some indication on the advertising of a number people can call or something that they text if needed.
You would want that in the phone number in the rules?
Well, I was thinking of that as part of a, and the notion that a helpline should be part of the rules, I think, as part of the advertising piece, so that there is, rather than just the general reference to providing resources, that there would be a helpline phone number there.
If you
Mr.
look
President,
back,
this is Commissioner Curra. Don't we have that in our within our website where these rules will be posted? And that information posted for the problem gambling?
I believe for the Wyoming side, yes.
yes, we do have that on our website, but if you look back at Section 1, the responsible gambling plan, applicants for sports wagering operators shall submit a responsible gambling plan to the commission at the time first application. And maybe I'm not understanding exactly what Patrick is saying here.
I guess what I'm saying is when there are advertisements for the providers, those advertisements should include a helpline phone number as part of that advertisement.
But not included in the rule. It should. I got you.
Yeah.
So you're wanting a helpline phone number to be included in the criteria on the advertising. Is that correct?
Right. That's right.
Makes sense.
So what would be the suggested language for that, Patrick?
So what I was looking at would be that there would be after the part about the minors, access to wagering accounts, then period, and then information about available programs to prevent, treat, or monitor problem gambling, and procedures for self-exclusion, and a helpline phone number for access to crisis needs or intervention.
And you want us just to reference the national health?
I think that the national network can be, part of. I don't think it has to be in the rules itself. I think Wyoming already uses that number.
We do.
Okay. Does that sound good with the commission to include that?
Is this something that we need to put in rule, though, just because of the ever-evolving technology? I just see that it says other policies and procedures as determined by the commission to prevent problem gambling and encourage responsible gambling. Is that something that we can do by an administrative requirement or something there within the commission to require those plans to include those phone numbers and those websites and those type of things? And I understand where Patrick's coming from, but I just didn't know if we needed to require that into the rules or if it's just going to be a requirement set forth internally by the commission.
I don't think we've got it covered.
Mike, do you have any thoughts on that? Or are we covered?
I didn't hear
Mr.
anything
President.
that was just said. There's some other feedback.
And Mr. President, I'm having a hard time hearing. It sounds like there's some feedback as well.
Oh, now they got her shut down. The question Commissioner Wildcat had would be directed to Mike with GLI. How in depth?
So I'm reading the requirement right now, and it says that it requires every form of advertising to contain a statement. Minors not allowed to open sports wagering, as well as information about available programs to prevent, treat, or monitor compulsive or problem gambling. I would say that those available programs would typically be offered, through the State Gaming Commission or through, the National Council of Problem Gaming. So it's kind of implied there that these advertisements are going to have this information. And to go off of what Commissioner Wildcat is saying, I would agree with her assessment that, the emergent technologies, things might change. Maybe a helpline might not be the direct, the ideal approach if there's alternate ways. Really, the information on these types of programs, I feel, would cover any sort of scenario.
And Mr. President, just to follow up on that, oftentimes when we have an instance where something like a phone number or a web address or an email address or something like that could change, if you went off a plain reading of the rule, the only phone number or web address that could be posted would be the one that's in the rule, and you wouldn't want to have to go out to re-promulgate rules simply because a phone number changed. And so it would seem appropriate to kind of leave that that up to the commission, leave that up to Charlie to provide the certain phone number, email address, web address, etc.
So the language as it sits right now gives us the flexibility and latitude in order to do that. Where if we nail it down more, we lose that. Is that what you're saying?
Mr. President, correct. I would err on the side of flexibility on this one. If in an effort to accomplish I guess effective advertising, the more flexible the better one, or the better on this one. Certainly we want to make sure that it reaches those folks, and I think allowing flexibility in the rules does accomplish that. Certainly folks can reach out to the commission if they have marketing or advertising materials, and the commission can work to include that.
Does that sound all right with you, Patrick?
Yeah, I think, from our point of view, flexibility is good, and emerging technology is good, and so that all makes sense. And I think that as long as there's an understanding that the advertising provides a way for people to reach out for help when they need it, I think that makes sense. So that sounds fine.
If I could jump in there.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Yes, and also thank you, Patrick, for jumping in here. I know this is all dear to a lot of us here. But on the page 62, lines 1969 and 1970, it also says other policies and procedures as determined by the commission to prevent problem gambling and encourage responsible gambling. So I think we're covered on that, and I think we should be in great shape. And again, look forward to working with you too. Thank you.
So then, if I'm hearing everything correctly, there will be no changes on the verbiage in section 5 as it sits right now. Thumbs up, commissioners? Okay. Thank you, Patrick. All right, with that, Charlie, the infamous Chapter 9.
Yes, thank you. Disciplinary actions and hearings. A lot of this chapter is new to you all. We had to come back over it and reconstruct it. Again, like I said during our last meeting, it was kind of like trying to put 110 into it, 220 or whatever outlet. And so we've got it that way now. Again, a little bit of language that was changed this morning is C, disciplinary procedures. Just some corrections there. Again, we'll have some formatting changes to this chapter. Section 2, disciplinary procedures. Section 3, citizen complaints. Section 4, dismissal of citizen complaints. Section 5, informal consultation. 6, assurance of voluntary compliance. Section 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, 12, and 13. And then on section 14, where we're incorporating it by reference, the uniform rules for contested case practice and procedures. And that is the end of 9 chapters of sports wagering rules.
Is there any questions on chapter 9 at this time?
Wow.
The best one I like on there is at no cost to the public. With that, is there any further discussion on the rules, 1 through 9?
Maybe go back and recap what we talked about, just real quick.
Yes,
Comments?
please, Charlie, recap the comments.
So I'm going to run back through chapters 1 through 9 and kind of recap some of the things that I've got written down here. Chapter 1, page 3, we're going to clarify who the director is there on line 86. It's the director of the Wyoming Gaming Commission.
Now, if we miss anything, you guys shout out, okay? See, a lot of time here.
Well, if I'd had my electronic version in front of me, we could go even faster. So then on page 56, section 7 of chapter 7, we're going to take line 1783 and 1784, reports shall be maintained and available to the commission. We're going to roll it up there to the first paragraph and insert it somewhere right along 1764. Again, no change, just moving it to maybe a more appropriate location.
58.
Page 58, on lines 1862, we're going to delete after operator or sports wagering vendor. And then on line 1863, we're going to delete after the operator of management services providers. Is that correct?
Oh,
Yes.
Yes, that's,
This is Representative Nissen. Charlie, can you read that as it would read?
Yes, thank you. Section 9, financial audits. Upon application of a permit, comma, and annually thereafter, comma, each sports wagering operator shall submit to the commission, comma, within 90 days of the operator's fiscal year end, comma, its most recent financial audit. For some reason, that doesn't quite flow right to me. We will make that correction. And if we have to do a minor change to make that flow better, is that all right with you, commissioners?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. On page 59, lines 1873, after operator, we'll delete, strike, and sports wagering vendor. Page 60 is okay. 62, 63, 64, 65. Moving on to chapter 9. No changes other than the formatting. Is that how everyone understood our changes?
Does that
Yes.
sound, oh, I like that. Representative Newsom, one thumb up. All right. With that then, Charlie,
Any public comment, any additional?
is there any public comment or any additional comments?
Mr. President, this is Chris Cipolla from DraftKings.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. We just wanted to say thank you to the commissioners and to the director for the work on these rules and for the working with industry and giving thoughtful consideration to our feedback. We do appreciate that. The one question at this point, just curious as to if there is any expectation or timelines that are being contemplated for release of applications and licensing process. Just curious if you have any information along those lines.
I think that's putting the cart before the horse, isn't it?
Well, I understand, again, thank you for the question. And I think we all have that question in mind. For me right now, and I've said this to several people that have called, my focus is what we have right here in front of us. After today's meeting, and after we get this headed towards the governor's office, then I'll move on to what I would consider phase 2. And, again, prepare the licenses, get things prepared, start moving forward. And again, I would like to have as much work done on the front end and get these things headed our way as quickly as we possibly can. Obviously you want to start operating soon. So, we have those same things that we have in mind as well. So I'm not answering your question.
Understood. I appreciate the information. Thank you.
Yeah. And we've got a lot on our plate right now, but we're going to keep piling through it and looking forward to it. I think, commissioners, we would need a motion at this point.
That's what I was going to say.
To approve the rules as corrected with formatting changes, minor substantive or non-substantive, changes. Would that be correct, Mike?
Yeah, Charlie, and Mr. President, Charlie, I think the preference would be for the commission's benefit. Once the rules with the incorporated changes from today's meeting are voted on and approved, Charlie and I will be going back for probably. We'll be going back through the rules again, and undoubtedly we may find something that's a non-substantive change, whether it's a small typo, a comma out of place, something like that we would need to probably make that change. And so I would ask that the motion be to approve the rules for submission and with the allowance for any sort of substantive change that Charlie and I can make in the coming 24 to 48 hours.
Is there anybody that would like to make that motion?
So moved.
So moved by Cactus. All right, is there a second out there?
Second.
Thank you, Randy. Been moved and seconded. Charlie, do we need a roll call for this one?
Well, let's have some discussion quickly.
Oh, discussion quickly. Is
And if there's any more comments from the public.
there any more comments from the public?
This is Commissioner Wildcat, I'm not the public, but I'd like to see a final copy before I approve for these to come out of commission with the changes. I'm just not typically one that just will approve a red line document, but I'd like to see a final copy.
How could we handle that?
That's we're getting an echo here. Let's mute this for just a second. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm echoing now too.
Oh, now you are.
Is this how? I'm still fairly new to this. Is this typically how? Is this how the process usually goes with the commission?
You know, we've done it different ways, Jenny, but or Commissioner Wildcat, excuse me. It's whatever you all are most comfortable with. You know, we can we could convene another meeting. We could convene a meeting on Friday afternoon with the final version, if that's something that you all would prefer to do. It's up to you folks.
There's still a 45-day comment period on this document in front of us too, Jenny, for us to consider. So I don't know if that would ease attention at all, but I mean, there's still, this is just what we're going to send to the governor to try and go out to public comment, if I follow the process correctly.
And just to follow up on, I guess, that at the end of the public comment, the rules would come back to the commission again in the final clean version, and you would be giving your okay to either adopt them or not. Right. So this is basically the step to move them into the public comment process. This is not your final stamp of approval and final adoption of the rules. Did that help you?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just the way that I work, I guess.
Is there any, well, that's good. Is there any other comments there along those lines?
President Davis?
Go ahead, Sherry.
Hi. Sorry about the feedback. I think it's for me because I'm traveling, but I would just say that I think that staff has the right direction to make these revisions. I feel comfortable in moving them forward, and I would suggest that we go ahead and move them forward to the governor.
How about the rest of the commission? What's your feeling?
I would concur.
Okay.
This Commissioner Lyon and I agree.
Commissioner Kerr agrees.
Commissioner Berry agrees.
All right.
Well, that would come in a vote.
Well, that
Call for the question.
call for the question then, Charlie. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Broussard is not here today. Commissioner Cavello.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Daigle.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Berry.
Here, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Wildcat.
Okay.
Nay? Is that what
Nay.
is the nay vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Pacheco.
Aye.
Commissioner Kura.
Aye.
Commissioner Lyman.
Aye.
And Commissioner Davis, it passes.
Aye. Yep. Motion carried. Once again, we'd like to thank everybody who has participated on this. This has been quite a deal here, quite the process. We still have 45 days to go, though.
Mr. President, Commissioner Kerr, I'd like to thank Charlie, Mike, and all the powers that be down there that have worked their rear ends off to get these things out to us in such a timely manner. So that's hats off to them too.
Okay. With that, our next meeting, we've had a little bobble in that, and our next meeting will move to Casper instead of Evanston on the July 9th. No, is that June? July. Is this
July.
July 9th. And we'll be having it at the Ramkota, and it'll be a public meeting. Okay?
Sounds good.
And I'm sure with everything else going on, we'll have additional meetings in between as well. So thank you, everyone.
With that, if there's no further questions or comments, we're out of here then.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Bye.